All right, we're back. Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the new Western Star Movie Podcast. New stream every Monday at 2, and we're gonna get started. I feel a little raspy because I've been a little bit I've been very my throat's been hurting. I went to Wildwood this weekend, and I don't know. I keep having a runny nose. I keep coughing, but it's getting better. Hopefully. And we're just gonna have a lot of fun today. Speaking of, we have a lot of highlights and records to talk about. Movie delays are still happening. We fortunately have some movie delays to talk about here on the stream. Unfortunately, Five Nights at Freddy's is the biggest horror movie of the year. Has broken numerous records, but is it worth watching for the critics? I don't know. I'll give you my information. Knights of the Zodiac might be one of the worst live action adaptations of anything that I ever seen. More on that later on. The actor's trade. How far can it go? How far will it go? And should it go until 2024? Should all movies this year just not have press screenings or not have any promotion for the actors? And then a bunch of quickie reviews that I'll have. And that's happening right now on the Western Star Movie Podcast. Welcome, I'm your host, Hunter West, HJW. And we're gonna have a good stream. Hopefully, nothing goes wrong. I'm wearing a raincoat. God knows why. Um, is he touching? Why are you touching my stuff, Turelli? Uh, okay. So I feel like I should have. I feel like I should go there, like there, but I'm not going to. All right. With that down, let's talk about today's topic, shall we? Of course, the biggest one that I have, the main one that everybody's going to talk about is this weekend. One of the most anticipated movies of the year and probably of all time, Five Nights at Freddy's, has officially come out in theaters and on Peacock streaming. And some of the people here pirated, I won't say wahoo, but pirated the movie. I've already watched it. I watched it when it released on Peacock on Thursday, October 26th, because they didn't go to the theater because they didn't want to hear the annoying fans. But what are you going to do? But that was the day. I finally sat down on my couch, put on the Peacock website, went on and watched it for the first time. And I watched the whole thing. And obviously, there's already clips online of what happens in a movie. So if you get spoiled, probably stay off the internet. Just go watch it. I don't know. But this movie has been under development hell for, I would say, the past, I don't know how many, like 8 years, ever since it was announced back in 2018 or 2015. And then there was an original script that was scrapped by Scott Catwin, the creator of the games himself. He actually wrote the screenplay. And also at a point, Warner Brothers was supposed to have the rights to this, and then Universal and Blumhouse took over. And we're getting in now in 20 this movie. There's a lot of anticipation, but I was nervous. One of the many reasons is because the moment they announced this movie was coming out, the moment they announced, oh, it's coming out October 27th, announced it was also going to be streaming on Peacock as well as theaters. And they were going to do the day to date, which all that excitement dwindled out of my body. And then, to even damage it more, when it was announced that the review embargo won't drop until the day of the movie, so October 26th, that also was a bad sign because the old saying is if the studio doesn't believe in their movie, why should we? There you go. And I have watched it right off the bat. It's very bad movie, and it breaks my heart. Now, whether or not you're a fan or not, I think I can divide this into a couple of groups. So, if you're a fan of video games, you're gonna notice them all. If you're not a fan of the games and you just like the idea and you like to dress up, cosplay, whatever, all that type of crap, it's weird and stuff, but whatever. If you know the lore, if you watch videos, if you play the games, you're gonna love this movie because it has all the Easter eggs that you want. However, I'm not a huge fan of the video game. I watched videos of it, but I was never like, it's a groundbreaking experience. I was never that kid. And so everybody was like, "Oh, it's a scary game," you know. And then it came out, I think in like 2014, and the game was just amazing. Everybody loved it, and so we got more sequels, we got fan based games, we got books, fan films, and then we actually have an actual movie from a major studio in Universal and Blumhouse. Let me just say also that their last movie that come out was Exorcist Believer. And what's interesting now is this movie, Five Nights at Freddy's, has officially, like I was telling you about my cough, has officially, in its first weekend, already has passed The Exorcist Believer in its fourth weekend in the worldwide box office. That's insane. Now, why is this movie so bad? There, first of all, the idea of this movie, the concept alone is great. And I think a lot of it has got to do with the visual flair. I honestly think that the visuals and the costumes and the animatronic suits look amazing. I think they did a great job with designing these characters to look like what they do in the actual games. And they didn't pull a Sonic the Hedgehog where they just looked terrible. They didn't do that. They actually looked like the characters from the video game, which is always something that a lot of people are nervous about. You know, unfortunately, I thought this movie was also pretty bad, like I said, and a lot of it has to do with the script and the story. Um, this is a pretty bad story, and I'm not the type of person that likes to hate on films. I think sometimes it's very difficult to make a movie. Had a itchy back for a minute. I think it's sometimes difficult to make a movie, and I know the struggle, pre-production, post-production, editing, all that stuff. And it it just comes down to the fact that are you willing to put in the time and effort to make your movie? Because if you don't, then why should we care about your film? But this story is atrocious. I thought it was a pretty awful story for a very simple movie. A security guard who works at a pizzeria place overnight sees these animatronics move, and then he's like, "Oh, I have to work 5 nights," and that's it. There's really nothing else to it. That's the whole central plot of the game. The game is pretty much you're playing as a security guard. You hear the phone guy like, "Hello, hello, hello," and then you play the game and you survive to night 6 by using the doors and the lights and the cameras. That's all the game was. Unfortunately, we live in a world where video game movies have to have overcomplicated stories and plots and characters that it just ruins the simplicity of the game with that. And it's just a very poor decision. And I do have to give credit to Emma Tammy because this is kind of on her. She's the one that directed the movie, wrote the screenplay, as well as Scott Catwin, who unfortunately also had to write the story, which is kind of sad. And I would be curious to hear what that original script was, because if anything, if that was anything better than what we got this time around, I would have said, "Why'd you cancel it?" Because this script absolutely, there are holes in the logic of this movie that make no sense. Characters do things that are so insanely stupid and so illogically unreal that at a while I just kept rolling my eyes, and it doesn't work. I see that there was some people that wanted to make this movie for the fans, but there's a problem. When you make movies for fans, they don't really care. Like, we live in a world where the millennials and Gen Z nowadays just doesn't care about bad movies. They just want to watch it and have a good time and be stupid in the theater. And that's what these people are. I'm not saying that there's a fan base that's like, "Oh, it's stupid and all." I think that the Five Nights at Freddy's fan base is really popular and cool. Unfortunately, they have to sit through a movie that really doesn't offer anything else other than that. You have uninteresting characters that you don't care about, really boring dream sequences that add nothing to the movie, that also don't make any sense, and just an overall tone that is awful. The tonal shifts in this movie go from insanely comedy to insane, like, hilariousness to, I would say, bland scary to just downright sad. It's so much and so chaotic that at a point it just got so confusing. The tonal shifts in this movie are terrible. Now, there is one scene that I think is the standout, and that is when these robbers, you can see from the trailer, they break in and they're like, "We're gonna steal some things." And I won't say what happens, but it's easily the most entertaining scene in the film, and really the only entertaining scene in the movie. I found this film to be, honestly, at times very boring. It's an hour and 49 minutes, and it feels almost like 2 hours. It's kind of a shame. And I understand there's going to be a lot of people out there who will be like, "Well, you're wrong, actually." And that's perfectly fine. If you don't think that, if you think that actually, then that's fine. But just know that there's opinions out there that people would like to express. I mean, not all opinions should be expressed. I mean, there's some stupid people out there that like to share their opinions on things, but whatever. They think that way. If you are somebody who has never played the games, I don't know how you're gonna enjoy this movie. You're gonna think this is one of the stupidest things ever. If you've heard of the games but never played them, I don't know how you're gonna react. If you played the games and you know the lore and you're a fan, I guess you're gonna love this movie. As for me, I found this film to be insanely disappointing. We have a comically insane script that goes nowhere. We have some pretty iffy performances as well. Characters that do things that you just roll your eyes on, unnecessary sequences of dreams that go nowhere, a couple good ideas, and a good looking movie. As a Five Nights at Freddy's movie, it's pretty decent. It's not great, but as a film, I'm not judging this as a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. There are every single film that is released is identified as a film. As a movie, this thing crumbles to the ground and everything really kind of stunk. I can see what the writers were trying to do, but in the end, it's a mess. And after a while, it just got ridiculous. I'm gonna give Five Nights at Freddy's. Hold on, I gotta pull it up. Oh my gosh. Mhm. Overall, I'm gonna give Five Nights at Freddy's a D minus. I understand there's gonna be people out there who are gonna be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You just don't like movies in general." That's not true. Come on. But I will be happy to debate why I think this movie is bad and why other people will think it's good. And now look, there's some people out there who will be like, "Well, the movie's fine," and that's perfectly okay. I mean, the fans don't think so because we have some huge box office news because let me pull it up. Five Nights at Freddy's has, if I'm understanding this correctly, has officially broken the record and tied the record for the biggest opening for a day and date release date. Five Nights at Freddy's has opened with $80 million. Let me say that again. This is a movie that was streaming on Peacock and in theaters that got negative reviews and opened to $80 million. Make no mistake, this is a huge win for Universal and Blumhouse. Not only that, it is the biggest Blumhouse movie of all time, opening wise, with $131 million. It's also now the biggest horror opening of the year, which is insane. Absolutely insane. So hold on, let me pull up the article. Box office. Well, what it was. So here's some of the records that this movie has opened. It has officially opened up with the number one Halloween weekend record for 12 years. For the first time in 12 years, the record being held by 2011's Puss in Boots that opened with $34 million. It is the third biggest horror movie opening ever. The only movies that are behind it are the two It films that came out. It Chapter 1 with $123 million, which I will be shocked if the sequel comes out, if they make the sequel and it beats it. And It Chapter 2 with $91 million. It also opened with the biggest PG-13 horror movie ever, which the previous record was A Quiet Place with 50.2. Currently, it destroys other current horror films. Like I said, with The Exorcist Believer, it is now at $59 million domestically in 4 weeks. Five Nights at Freddy's, actually, hold on. Saw X is now at 50 million after 5 weeks. Five Nights at Freddy's passed both of those in 1 week. It also, the opening is more than The Nun 2, Insidious, Saw. Like, these are movies that open big, and most of them number one. And now, clearly, we have a new victory, a new victor. It's currently, as of now, the number 5 October weekend opening. Now that might change if Venom 1 is lower than this, but they say it's $80 million. Venom 2018 Venom is number 4 with 80.2. Venom Let There Be Carnage at number 3 with 90. Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour with 92.8, and Joker with 96.2. It is also the second, as of this recording, or as of right now, as of me saying this, the second day and date weekend. 3% behind Black Widow with 80.3. Now, the actuals might come in a little bit higher than that, but that's what we have right now. Also, Five Nights at Freddy's opened higher than Halloween Kills, which debuted $49 million, and Halloween Ends to 40. That also, both movies opened to Peacock. Like, this isn't hyperbole when I say that this movie shattered expectations. Now, make no mistake, if this movie is going to have a second weekend drop, it's going to have a second weekend drop because now people know, oh, it's on Peacock. Number 2, the movie's not good. But again, rewatchability in the fan base. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie opens to over $20 million or even $30 million on its second weekend, which will be insane. It will be insane. Crazy. All right. With that out of the way, let's move on to this, shall we? I am not a big anime fan. I am not a big manga series fan. I'm not a big whatever. Those cringy animes where the people dress up and stuff. Did I watch Jesus? No, Fraud Lord. I did not watch Sin's Life. I have no idea what that is. I might look it up after this stream. Thank you for that heads up. But one of the movies that has been getting or that had a live action film version of itself this year was that of Knights of the Zodiac. Now, I didn't review this movie. I didn't talk money to see this movie. I hadn't heard good things about it. And so it was on Netflix last weekend, and I got to watch it. I got to watch this movie, Knights of the Zodiac. Now, if you're not familiar, the movie is pretty much about this fighter guy who gets recruited to be a protector for this girl who has these powers that will kill people. And they say he is a Pegasus Knight. And there's these bad guys that are out to get him and stuff. And that's actually all you need to know about the movie. Oh my God. I said this. I said this a while. I said this a lot. I say this a lot with movies. I say like, "Oh, this is a bad movie." Like this is a bad movie. Like I can't believe why would you make that? That was so unnecessary. This movie however, Knights of the Zodiac, it might go down as the second worst live action adaptation, in my opinion, of all time. Like Dragon Ball Evolution was a bad one, and it was based off of a popular anime show. My God, this movie sucks, and this might be worse. I I could not believe what was happening. As a movie, this is one of the most poorly executed films I have seen. The acting in this movie, when you have Sean Bean and Famke Jensen in this movie, and even they're giving weak performances, you know something's wrong. Like, obviously, the casting's gonna be like, everybody's gonna be like, oh, the casting's off. You know, they're just doing this to be. I don't even know half of these people. I don't. The performances are so over the top. Like, there's a perfect example. There's a scene in which a bad guy is like talking to his boss, and the boss is like, "We must prepare the sequence," and this one dude's like, "We will not stand in the face of evil, next master." It's like this is bad acting, and I don't know any of these actors. It's a bad movie. The other thing I think this movie is terrible at is keeping me entertained because this is kind of like an action movie, and oh my God, it's so boring. This is an hour and 52 minutes. This movie is almost 2 hours. And I could say within like the first hour of the movie, after the first hour was done, I said to myself, this is one of the worst movies of the year. I could not believe it. I could not believe it. And I said that knowing that Winnie the Pooh and Children of the Corn were movies out there. This movie might be worse than Children of the Corn. Now, Winnie the Pooh, that might be something else. But I mean, just thinking about the the lessons learned, the unnecessary dialogue. The dialogue is so bad and so stilted. It's embarrassing. And I sat through the whole thing. I sat through the whole thing and watched it. the action sequences, you could you could imagine some dude was on a stage for a school play, filming with a camera, moving around with wires. That's how bad it was. The fighting is laughable. Like the editing choices are obnoxious. The slow motion, the the hovering over the shots, it's so tropey, it's so boring, it's so disgustingly unawfully unedited. It's bad. And that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that this is a movie that's based off of sorry. This is damn. This is a movie that's based off of a popular series. So I don't know if fans will be devastated that this thing sucks because I mean, remember Dragon Ball Evolution. That's the biggest example that you can get from a studio trying to make a live action version of manga, anime, and it completely sucks. One Piece is fantastic, and that's why I haven't watched it, but I've heard from people saying it's I don't know why I keep doing that. But I heard from people saying it's fantastic. Um, but also, it's just a another attempt to be like, hey, you want to watch a live action version of this show that you like? It's like, why wouldn't I want to watch the show? I can just watch the show instead. That's the problem. You can watch the show instead. You don't need to watch this movie. I don't know the show. I don't watch the show. I am so sorry. But oh my god. I literally at a point I just wanted to stop because I had to stop the show because I was going over my dad's that day. And I was like I couldn't even think. I couldn't even think about it. I couldn't remember what I watched. I paused at the final battle. And then I watched the final battle and it was so bad. I couldn't believe it. So, we have cringeworthy performances, cringe writing, awful editing, a story that makes no sense, characters that you don't care about, all the above. I'm going to give Knights of the Zodiac a big fat effing F. Sorry. It's not good. All right. Now, unfortunately, the actor strike is still happening and movies are getting delayed. So let's talk about it. Following Disney's delays of Marvel of Deadpool 3 due to the actor strike, of course, Paramount has made changes to their release date too. So, what are those changes? Mission Impossible 8 or Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 needs to restart production. And it has officially been delayed from June 28th, 2024 to May 23rd, 2025. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was a moderate success at the box office, a lot of money to remove. But that also meant that another horror movie had to be moved up. A Quiet Place Day 1, the newest spin-off, is now moving from March 8th, 2024 to June 28th, 2024. John Krasinski's directed Ryan Reynolds starring movie If is moving up a week to May 17th from May 24th. The untitled animated SpongeBob SquarePants movie, previously dated for May 23rd, 2025, will now go on December 19th, 2025. The new date is now bumping heads with Avatar and another Warner Brothers movie. But that's not it. Aquaman 2, well, it's not really a big day, but Aquaman 2 moved up to December 22nd. This is another big one. The live action Snow White movie is now moving from March 24th, 2024, or March 22nd, 2024, to March 21st, 2025. An entire year. Not only that, Disney Pixar's Elio goes from March 1st, 2024 to June 13th, 2020. Damn. 2025. So I don't need that. So you know what? Let's talk about that now. That's bad. This is bad. What I just did was bad. I have a coughing problem. That's bad. But also, the delays are bad. And this is what the writer's strike is doing. Studios are afraid of giving their giving their money's worth. And thus they're not willing to allow actors to give them their pay. So what they're doing is, well, we'll delay the movie so the strike will continue. That's what they're doing. And so now all these major movies that are supposed to come out next year, they're not. They're coming out a year later. Or they're not coming out at all. Which absolutely freaking sucks. This is why we need to work together, both the actors and the studios, to be like, okay, even I know this is really bad and stupid what we're doing. So let's just agree on something. Let's agree that we need pay and whatever. At this point, if I was an actor, I'll be like, you know what? Whatever you give me, I'll take it. And then we can go back to the movie industry being normal and not having this nonsense. Because these movies that are upcoming need to have their actors promoted because the box office is going to be very steep and off this year. It's really going to be bad. So I'm saying this as a nice person. Actors and studios, stop being children, work together, figure out a way to make both of your minds and your lives happy and agree on a deal. And if you can't do that, well, then I'm still going to be upset. Yeah, it sucks. And the worst part about it is that we still are not 2023 yet. We have all these other movies coming out. Marvel's, Hunger Games, Napoleon, Wish. What else? Wonka, Aquaman 2, The Color Purple, like all these big budget movies that that are in jeopardy of becoming bombs. So, I don't know. Anyways, what do you think? In my opinion, this needs to stop. Like, this whole spiel needs to stop. And I hope you agree with me on this. Anybody says that the actors and writers, the writer's strike is done. Like, the writer's strike is done. But the actors were too busy being like, we got to support them. So we're going to strike too. That they dug themselves in a hole, in my opinion. I think they dug themselves in a hole, and now they're screwing themselves because they striked. So, what do you do? All right. One last segment before, because I didn't want to wrap this up because I don't know how long this talk is going to take. But we have 4 reviews to talk about on this channel. Wait. Oh, no. Yeah, 4 movie reviews. Going to take 3 minutes for each. And let's get started. First one up is this movie called Cobweb. Cobweb is on Hulu and is about a boy, Peter, who has 2 parents that are really, really strict about what happens to him and what he does for a living. He hears some things in his walls that are not normal. And so every time his parents check, they're like, well, you're just making things up. But some secrets start to unfold. And maybe the parents aren't what they seem. They're hiding something, and Peter might want to know what. So it's really kind of a mystery thriller horror film. And I thought this was a very well executed movie. No, it's not great. No. There's some characters in here that you don't care about. There's some unnecessary sequences that lead to nothing. And it doesn't work. I thought that this was a much better horror film, than most other horror movies that came out this year, which is kind of sad. Anthony Starr is great in this movie. He plays the dad. Obviously, maybe people know him from Homelander with the boys. I thought the kid who played Peter was really good. He gave a really good performance. I think the tension and the mystery was there. I was never bored because I wanted to know what was this thing that is hidden in the walls that the parents are keeping hidden. Like, what is this thing? And I think the reveal works great. It works so well that honestly, I wouldn't mind to see a little bit more. And that's the problem. This movie is a little bit short. And the big reveal is very like minimum. You see the glimpse, you see the whole picture, but then you see glimpses of it at times, and it gets like really distracting. But overall, I thought this was a pretty enjoyable horror movie that's on Hulu. I'm gonna give Cobweb a B. Watch it for yourself. It's on Hulu. Whatever you want to do. All right. Next up on Hulu is Vacation Friends 2. Disclaimer: I didn't watch the first Vacation Friends, so I have no idea how the first movie is compared to the sequel. All I know is that the sequel came out and it sucked. The story on this movie is that we have Lil Ray Howery and John Cena and their wives going on a vacation, and John Cena's wife played by or his wife's dad, played by Steve Buscemi, visits and is in a little bit of shady business. And little Ray Howery is like, I don't know, you doing something shady and silly, and it's like, no, I'm not. And they get into a whole drug train thing. And it's not normal for comedy sequels to be good. So I'll just come out and say it. It was not good. Um, this is a very below average horror or comedy. Sometimes it's just not funny, and that's the worst thing you can do in a comedy is not make me laugh. Also, the wife to John Cena, not the wife to Lil Ray Howery, but John Cena's wife in this movie, whoever played that wife is annoying. I mean, unfunny, annoying, stupid. It got on my nerves, and at a point, it just got stupid. The jokes in this movie don't really work for me. Some of the characters are easily forgettable. Like the villains. What do you know? Who are they? What are they? What are they? They're nothing. They're absolutely nothing. And I just couldn't believe what I was watching. It was boring, didn't work. And I feel bad because, comedy like this can be funny, it can work. If this was back in the 2000s without streaming, I would have been like, this movie, I would have thought this movie would have been a hit and it would have been great. but it's a streaming movie on Hulu. What do you know? So I'm gonna give Vacation Friends a D plus. All right, two more and we're done. I watched You're So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah. This is an Adam Sandler starring produced comedy that's about this girl who's in middle school and is going through a lot of changes in her life. She's growing up and she has all these things planned for her bar mitzvah, and she kind of has a lot of like tragic things happen. Number one, she really likes this guy and best friend kisses him. Number two, her friendships are starting to get ruined. Her relationships with her parents are starting to get ruined. Like she's going downhill. And I thought this was a pretty good movie too. It was funny. It was enjoyable. I connected with sometimes the characters. I don't like there's a lot of modernized stuff to this movie, and that just gets on my nerves. I don't like modernized things in movies because it makes you think, oh, well, we're just going to get an idea from this and this because those are today's trends and make it into a comedy. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It didn't work for this movie, in my opinion. Also, there's some jokes in here that don't land at all. So there's that. But overall, I enjoyed myself. I'm going to give this movie, You Are So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah, a B. And then finally, what was it? Spy Kids Armageddon. Oh boy. Again, I don't hate trashing movies. I don't like to trash on movies, but again, this movie's not good at all. Like at all. Let's talk about the worst things about this movie. Number one, it's too silly. It's not funny. It's very silly. And I was like, the lines of dialogue being said are so idiotic and ridiculous. Um, Zachary Levi and Gina Rodriguez, they play fine as parents, but the kids are annoying and they don't work. Like the original kids in this first Spy Kids movie are you know who they are, they're nostalgic. And I think it's because they haven't made another Spy Kids movie in like 10 years. And Robert Rodriguez is like, we're gonna reboot the franchise. Bad CGI, bad dialogue, bad villain, predictable story. It just is a lot of things that it's in this movie's not. So I'm gonna say egg and a half. Egg and a half. Why did I say egg and a half? I have no idea why. It's just oh my god, I don't know why I said egg and a half. I don't know what it is. I was thinking about breakfast today. I have no idea. Um no. I'm gonna give Spy Kids Armageddon a D because th- they're fine as the parents, Zachary Levi and Gina Rodriguez. And there's some neat things they do with the franchise. Overall, it's a disconnect, too many cringe moments, too many one-liners that made no sense. The kids are annoying. The dialogue is awful. The CGI is atrocious. But kids are going to find a fan base for this movie. And with that, that concludes our podcast. Sorry if it was a little bit short, a little bit under the weather, but whatever. On behalf of the Iona WIUR, my name is Hunter West, and this has been the Western Star Movie Podcast. Signing off.